A woman stood on my land with a rifle resting like it belonged there, not even trying to hide it. She smiled and said, "People have accidents up here, outsiders especially." And in that moment I realized I didn't just buy 200 acres in cash, I bought someone else's little kingdom, and the queen didn't plan on stepping down. I'd just sold my software company, the kind of exit that's supposed to make you feel invincible. I didn't want a mansion or a Ferrari. I wanted quiet, trees, space, a place where nobody could knock on my door and complain about the shade of my trash can. So when I found this listing, 200 acres, mostly wooded off-grid potential private access road, I moved fast. I wired the money. I signed the paperwork. I kept telling myself, "This is it, Ethan. You're finally off the hamster wheel." The first time I drove out there, I was grinning like an idiot. The road climbed into the hills, gravel popping under my tires, sunlight flashing through pine branches. I passed one old gate and thought, cute, country stuff. Then I rounded a bend and my stomach dropped. There were buildings. Not one hunting cabin, not a shed. I mean, a full setup. A main house with smoke curling from a chimney, a couple smaller cabins tucked behind it. Solar panels, glinting garden beds, a chicken coop, vehicles parked like a little village. And people. A kid on a bicycle froze and stared at me like I'd driven into his living room. A man stepped out holding a mug like it was noon in suburbia. Then another person and another, and suddenly I had a crowd forming around my truck. I rolled my window down and tried to sound calm. "Hey, sorry, I'm Ethan. I'm the owner of this property." The man blinked like I'd said I was the owner of the moon. Owner. Before I could even pull up my deed on my phone, a woman pushed to the front. Mid-40s, perfect hair, perfect smile, expensive hiking boots that had never seen mud. She held a clipboard like it was a weapon. "I'm Melissa Whitaker," she said, bright as a news anchor, "president of Pine Hollow Homeowners Association." She didn't say HOA like a normal person. She said it like it was a title, a warning. I tried again. "Okay, but this is my land. I closed last week. I have the deed." Melissa's smile stayed in place, but her eyes hardened. "You're confused. This area is within our community boundaries. It's governed by the HOA. You can't just show up and start making claims." Making claims? Like I'd found a random patch of dirt and decided to play king. A guy behind her muttered, "Here we go again," like I was the problem that kept returning. I took a breath. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here because I own this parcel." Melissa tapped her clipboard and turned slightly, performing for the crowd. "Folks, this is exactly what we talked about. Out-of-town money thinks paper beats people." Then she looked back at me and dropped her voice. "You need to leave. Right now." I sat there with both hands on the steering wheel, hearing the blood thump in my ears. This was my land, but I was outnumbered, and I could feel how fast civil discussion could turn into accidental shove on a mountain road. So I did the one thing I hated doing. I backed up, turned around, and drove away like a trespasser on property I'd paid for in cash. That night I called my attorney, Derek Shaw, the kind of real estate lawyer who never wastes words. I sent him photos. I sent him the listing. I sent him a screenshot of my deed. I said, "Tell me there's an explanation that doesn't involve me losing my mind." He went quiet for a few seconds, then sighed. "Ethan, there's a note in the title packet, buried. Potential occupants. Potential occupants." I repeated like the words might change if I said them slower. "It's vague," he said, "but vague is enough to cause a fight, and if they've been there long enough they may try adverse possession." I didn't go into some dramatic spiral. I did something worse. I opened a spreadsheet. Legal retainer. Survey. Title work. Court fees. Time. Delays. I started doing the math the way you do when your stomach is tight and you're trying not to panic. And for the first time since I bought the land, I thought something I didn't want to admit out loud. Walking away might be cheaper. The next morning, my phone lit up with an email from Pine Hollow Homeowners Association. Not a greeting, not a discussion request. A notice of trespass, then a fine schedule, then a compliance warning that read like I'd parked my boat in someone else's driveway. I stared at it and actually laughed one short, bitter laugh because the audacity was almost impressive. They were fining me for being on my own property. I called Derek again. "They're threatening a lien." "They can try," he said, "but if they're bold enough to send that, it means they believe they own the narrative. We need facts, records, history. So I drove to the county recorder's office like it was 1997, pulled property files, and started tracing the chain of ownership. Names, dates, transfers. I wanted something clean. Instead, I found a mess. Old transfers, informal agreements, references to a caretaker arrangement from years ago. No signed lease I could see, but enough smoke to tell me there was a fire somewhere. And then Melissa made a mistake. I went back up the mountain, not to confront, not to argue, but to observe. I stayed on the edge, took photos of vehicles, noted the access points, watched how they moved. Melissa spotted me anyway, because of course she did. She walked right up with that same polished smile. Still confused, Ethan. I'm not confused, I said. I'm documenting. Her smile twitched. We're not squatters. We were invited. We've been caretakers for years. Caretakers. That one word snapped something into place. Because I'd spent this night reading state law like a man trying to survive a storm. Adverse possession requires hostile occupation, meaning not with permission. Caretaker implies permission. So if they were there because an old owner allowed it, their clock didn't run the way they wanted it to. I didn't say that to her. I just nodded like I was absorbing information. And that's when she leaned closer and lowered her voice like she was giving me friendly advice. People have accidents up here, she said softly. The road is steep. The weather changes, you know. Then she turned and walked away, and a man stepped out of the main house carrying a rifle like it was a normal accessory. No raised weapon, no pointing, just presence. Message delivered. I got in my truck and drove back down with my jaw locked so tight my teeth hurt. I called Derek from the parking lot of a gas station because I needed something ordinary around me. He didn't get emotional. He didn't tell me to breathe. He said, okay, we move like this survey first. Stakes and markings, then notice to vacate. Then we involve code enforcement if there's anything commercial or unpermitted. Commercial, I asked. People don't build a village on someone else's land for fun, he said. They're either hiding or making money. That line stuck with me. So I went hunting not with a weapon, with Google. I searched the name Pine Hollow. I searched the address. I searched the mountainside like it was a suspect. And after a while I found it. A website. Not an HOA site. Not a neighborhood page. A retreat listing off-grid experience, private cabins, group gatherings, nature healing weekends. Photos that made my stomach flip because I recognized the buildings. My buildings. My land in soft filter marketing shots with smiling people and yoga mats. They weren't caretakers. They were running a business. And businesses have paper trails, bookings, payments, tax questions, zoning violations, permits, fire safety, health codes. For the first time in days, I felt something shift in my chest. Not hope, not joy. Something sharper. Leverage. I hired a survey crew 2 days later. Real professionals. Tripods measuring equipment, orange vests. Caleb, the lead surveyor, didn't care about drama. He cared about coordinates. We started early, and sure enough, Melissa came storming out like she'd been waiting by the window. You can't do this, she snapped. This is HOA community land. Caleb didn't even look up. We're surveying a parcel per recorded deed. Melissa pulled out her phone and called the sheriff like she was calling her personal assistant. 20 minutes later, a deputy rolled up Deputy Collins' hands on his belt, face already tired. Melissa launched into her speech. These men are trespassing. They're harassing our community. The deputy looked at me. Sir, do you have documentation? I held out the deed copy and Derek's work order. No shouting, no speeches, just paper. Deputy Collins skimmed it, then looked at Melissa. Ma'am, this looks like a civil dispute. If he's the titled owner, he's allowed to survey. Melissa's face tightened like someone had slapped her in public. And what about our rights? She snapped. Take it to court, the deputy said. Don't block the survey. Melissa spun toward the crowd that had gathered, because there was always a crowd, and tried to turn it into a performance. This is what outsiders do, she shouted. They erase communities. But it didn't land the way she expected. Because when the orange stakes started going into the ground, reality started showing up. Lines, corners, boundaries, truth with coordinates. That night, Derek sent a formal notice to vacate. It wasn't dramatic, it was surgical. It referenced the survey, the chain of title, and the caretaker language. It didn't argue with feelings. It warned consequences. And here's where Melissa tried her last big move. She emailed me from the HOA address and threatened to enforce community protection measures. She claimed they'd place liens. She claimed they'd involve security. Then she made her second mistake. She included attachments, minutes from some so-called HOA meeting documents describing retreat operations, talk about guest capacity donation schedules, and a plan to avoid county attention. It was like she handed me a box labeled proof and didn't realize what it was. Derek read it and said, "Ethan, this is not just a land dispute anymore. We forwarded everything to county code enforcement. We flagged the retreat listings. We submitted zoning complaints with photos and web screenshots. We noted the number of cabins, the lack of visible permits, the business operation on a parcel not zoned for it. And then we waited not for justice as a concept, but for bureaucracy, which is slower and somehow more terrifying when you're on the wrong side of it." It didn't take long. One morning I drove up with Derek on speakerphone, and as I rounded the bend I saw 3 county vehicles parked out front. Clipboards, hard hats, a fire marshal truck. Melissa was outside talking fast, gesturing wide, like she could wave away official authority with her hands. Then she saw me and her face changed. She didn't smile this time. She walked straight toward my truck and that rifle guy stepped out again, just standing there watching. Melissa leaned down to my window. "You're really doing this," she hissed. "I'm doing paperwork," I said. "The only thing you respect." Her eyes flashed. "You have no idea what you've started." I nodded toward the county staff. "Looks like you started it a while ago." One of the inspectors walked up, asked to speak with the property owner. That was the moment Melissa tried to reclaim control. She stepped in front of him. "I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. This is our community property." The inspector didn't even blink. He held up a printed deed copy mine like it was a shield. "According to county records, the titled owner is Ethan Carter." Melissa opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked around like she expected the crowd to save her. But the crowd was quiet, because authority had entered the room and it wasn't wearing an HOA badge. The fire marshal started pointing at structures, asking about occupancy and egress. Another inspector asked about septic. Someone asked about commercial permits. Someone asked about revenue. Melissa kept talking faster, higher, sharper, until Deputy Collins pulled up again, this time not looking bored. He spoke with the county staff. He looked at Melissa. Then he looked at the rifle guy who suddenly decided he had somewhere else to be. And then it happened fast. Melissa raised her voice, started accusing, started claiming harassment. Stepped into an inspector's path, and when the deputy told her to back up, she didn't. She tried to do what she always did, push, dominate, intimidate. It didn't work on a deputy. "Ma'am," he said louder this time, "step back." Melissa snapped, "This is my community." The deputy's expression didn't change. "Turn around." Her face went white in a way that made her makeup look like a mask. "Excuse me?" "Turn. Around." When the cuffs clicked, the sound was small, but it felt like thunder in that quiet mountain air. Melissa's eyes darted to me like she expected me to gloat. I didn't. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel, watching the person who'd threatened accidents get walked toward the patrol car because she couldn't handle the one thing she couldn't bully: a record. As they drove her away, the county staff kept working. Clipboards moved, photos were taken, notices were posted. No cheering, no dramatic music, just procedure. I got out of my truck, stepped onto the dirt, and for the first time since I bought the land, I felt the ground under my feet like it actually belonged to me. Not because I'd yelled louder, not because I'd played dirtier, because I'd proved it. And if there's one lesson I'm taking from all of this, it's simple paper. Doesn't care who screams the loudest.